Welcome to the Embodiment Conference. This channel, Trauma and Social Change, it's absolutely the moment for that, isn't it? I'm Steve Hoskinson. I'm the founder of Organic Intelligence. I've been teaching in this area of trauma, embodiment, and social change for about 25 years. It's an honor, really, for us to be sponsoring this channel where we're going to hear a multiplicity of voice, all unique contributors to our collective understanding of how to move from trauma and support then social change. Our unique voice in organic intelligence has something to do with a koan that I'd like to present to you, which is trauma means unintegrated resource. And that's a koan, and if you'd like and are feeling intrigued about that riddle, then tune in to the post-trauma system development course that we're offering here. The coupon code that'll get you half off on that is ENJOY. Now, enjoy this next presentation, and we'll look forward to another meaningful time as we explore these topics, trauma and social change. Enjoy.
And now I have the honor of introducing Ron de Brito. She is a certified embodied facilitator, empowerment and compassion coach, nonviolent communication practitioner, and mediator. With that, I warmly welcome Ron.
Thank you so much for your beautiful introduction. It's such an honor to be here. It really is. And I do want to just say something honoring my lovely friend, the founder of this conference, Mark Walsh. It has been so amazing to be part of so far and to see the other speakers. I'm truly honored to be here. Steve New remarked that he was surprised I didn't feel I could solve all of historic trauma in 50 minutes. So I'm going to do my best. My invitation here right now is simply to settle into yourselves lovingly. I'm going to begin with a bit of my own story. And if that brings up for you your story, what about my story? The format defines the fact that I'm going to do a lot of the talking today. But the invitation is about stories, our pasts, our history, our ancestors. And this is something I'm working personally on right now. Something about really allowing the sweetness of hearing each other and letting each other know that we're valued, that our story matters, that we can be heard with compassion and with gentleness. Something about being present for others, to offer compassion and understanding, and to really create something, a lineage of melting together, of collectively supporting each other, and make it normal for us to meet and hear each other's pain and soften and let our voices be heard. It's lovely to see some of my friends here in the room. So I'm going to start with a little bit about my own personal story. And, you know, if something comes up for you around your voice and your story, please know that I want to hear you. I'm going to ask you during this to pop a lot of things into the chat. Please feel free to do whatever you wish to do. Write if you want to write, and feel free to just be quiet and not to write if that's not what you wish to do. So I was about 4 years old, certainly before I went to school, when I began to understand that my voice wasn't really allowed. And I remember my embodied confusion at that time, wanting to ask questions and not doing that. Even age 16 or 17, I was told, you're just a child, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything. And so although I was loved, the sort of texture of the love didn't really have space for who I was. And I kind of marveled at other people that asked questions because I didn't know how you did that. I love being around people. I find people fascinating, and I was so curious, and yet I was often alone as a girl. And because of that, I didn't really learn skills about relating to other people. I was expected to be good but I really didn't know what that meant or what it was that brought people pleasure or didn't bring them pleasure. And I started to have a sense of fear about my voice not being welcome, about being wrong. And I embodied my fear response to disapproval and punishment by holding my voice in, being silent, and also kind of cringing in my body. So of course I was longing for connection, understanding, playfulness. Nobody ever talked about emotions or feelings. And so I had no way of really connecting to who I was. Aged about 18, I was probably more like 12, still longing to find out some validation about who I was in the world. And all of my relationships were a desperate attempt to find out who I was. And it went like, I'll just latch onto this person and they're going to help me, or I'll cling onto that person and maybe they'll know, maybe they'll help me. And of course, no one else knew what it was that I was yearning for. So what I had was knowledge. And so I kind of used that knowledge quite a lot. My behavior was around logic and being rational. And so I was good at judging, analyzing, and criticizing and finding faults. And I communicated in that way with myself and the world for a very long time. And, you know, even after 20 more years, I knew something was missing, but nobody around me at the time could help me with how I could connect with myself. I was aware of pain. I had a huge amount of pain for days, maybe, you know, a long time, on my head, the left side of my head, the left side of my neck. That was excruciating. And I notice this pain now. And now I recognize it comes up. If I watch something on television that evokes a memory of a pain, I feel my body curling in. My left shoulder comes in to look after me. My left hip moves in. And so I'm celebrating the awareness of that. A few years ago, I noticed that I wasn't breathing. And now I'm celebrating that I breathe continuously. There's another deeper layer that I'd like to tell you a bit about. My father is of Indian origin. My mother was of African origin, and they came to England from Trinidad. So I'd like to put in a little bit of background around Trinidad. Trinidad is in the West Indies. And there were Amerindians who lived there for about 7,000 years until the Spanish came in 1530. And at first, there was collaboration, you know. The Spanish said, okay, we'll live here. And the Amerindians said, that's fine, we'll live down here. But the Spanish intention was really also inclusive of converting the indigenous people to Christianity. And there began to be disagreements, and there was killing on both sides. And after about 100 years, the Amerindians had pretty much disappeared. And I really grieve for that loss, for those who lost their lives, who lost their home, and for those who felt that violence and destruction was a way of solving things that they weren't happy about. After that, Britain was colonized by the Spanish, the Dutch, the French, the British, Portuguese. And all of these Europeans brought shiploads of brown people from West Africa as slaves to work in plantations. And millions of them died on the journey across the Atlantic. And those who survived were forced into being laborers. it seems very unlikely that in the nature of those millions of people, that their life purpose was to be laborers. I'd just like to share my screen with you and show you a little slide. And so what I see in this slide is something about the stature of these people. You know, the beautiful muscles in their strong legs, the supporting themselves in their pelvis and in their spines. Not only the fact that they're chained and are submitting to domination because they don't have choice. There's something so marvelous to see that they stood up and they took action. And I cherish that. And so when I look at these faces, it's the same way that I look at every face. I see the humanity. I see the beauty and preciousness, the potential. I used to work as a school teacher. And so, that's what I always see, the potential, the possibilities that live in those faces, in those hearts. And just imagine the sadness that they were not able to live out their lives with choice and with freedom. So I've got a little picture that just somehow describes the enormity of the situation about the slave ships across the Atlantic to the Americas, North America, South America, and just how the impact of recognizing how many people were transported from their homelands. And that those who died, they never got to tell this story. And that really I feel that my ancestors need some grieving. They need some love to be offered for what they went through because they never got a chance to process that. So those things accompany me, my own personal lifetime, some glimpses of that, and some kinds of reflection on my history. So I decided to bring the skill of nonviolent communication to this question of how to cope with the enormity of this loss. And of course, I spoke to friends of mine who have different histories and how we can all cope with those losses. So I want to talk about practicing some skills around listening to stories. So I'll tell you a little bit about nonviolent communication. It was created by Marshall Rosenberg to create a quality of connection with oneself and others so that everyone's needs could be met through mutual giving from the heart. And it's framed in this way. The intention is to connect with attention on grounded awareness, on compassion and presence. And there are three main ways that we can connect to nonviolence. First, of course, is to connect with ourselves, focusing within. Then, when we've figured out what's within, maybe we can try expressing that to other people, what's alive in me. And then maybe we can empathically receive others' expressions. And classical NVC focuses on observing what happened without judgment, naming the feelings and needs, and making requests. So this is how I begin to explore nonviolent communication, which is to begin with ourselves. Everything starts with us. And if I can't have any compassion or awareness of my own feelings and needs, then I can't really hear yours. So I just want to offer a few tools around nonviolent communication for how we can bring our love and care to grieving. So here's an invitation to write in the chat something that stimulates you. So when something happens that you don't like, could you maybe write, if you would like to do that, the thing that happened, what someone said or did, the sensation that comes up in your body, and after that, your thoughts about the situation. So that's that would be really lovely for me to see something about you and what's going on with you. So yeah, if you would like to add some of those things into the chat, what goes on in your body when something happens that you don't like? So a fast heartbeat is one reply. Yeah. And thank you for reflecting on these things. Tension, the chest, trembling, a lump in the throat, the shoulders come up, freezing. Oh, the throat seems to drop to the bottom of the stomach, feeling nauseous, shutting down and feeling tension in the body. Yeah, tightening in the solar plexus, knots in the stomach, energy, anxiety, tension, restless. Thank you. It really is beautiful to hear from you and to feel connected with you. And we feel that also there's a comment here that when we hear about someone else's loneliness, there's a shrinking inside that we can't help with that. So this is really important. This is what our bodies do when we're challenged. And so I want to offer you another little slide about the fact that so many things happen at once. And I'm so really grateful for what you're putting in here. And I will be reading the chat later because obviously it's very quick as it goes by. So this is my take on it, that when something happens that's very difficult, lots of things happen at once. First of all, there's the challenge. And then we very often bypass the body sensation, the feelings, feeling them. Our habitual system patterns come up to fight or fly or to freeze or fawn or faint or fatigue, I've heard in this conference. And of course, our head, the body sends information to the head, and in the brain, there is analyzing, rationalizing, and trying to be right. And we judge ourselves, and we blame and judge ourselves, or we lash it out at the other person, and then that's their stimulus, and they retaliate too. And so this goes on. And these are patterns that have been with us for thousands of years. So one of my invitations is where you notice what happens in your body, keep noticing it when it comes up with love and curiosity. Oh, this is what my body is doing right now in this moment. Wow, that's really hard. That's tough for me. Now I'm aware. Now I can choose whether I'm going to continue doing this or whether I can choose something different. So how can we choose something different? So we need to begin to learn some skills for ourselves before we can do something different. When I teach embodied NVC, I think of NVC as what I'm noticing, what I'm feeling, what I need, and what request I can make. But when I think about embodiment, I think about it as how am I noticing? And that was the first thing that we've all done. How am I sensing my emotions, my feelings? And how do I sense what I need? And so it's bringing the words out of the center stage and being with the feelings. And this feels really important to me. We need both, of course. So what I'd like to invite right now is simply to to ground, to feel the ground underneath you, to feel the ground supporting you underneath your seat, underneath your feet. And as you feel that support, to let your weight sink into it and know that you are connected to the ground. And know that this same ground is holding all of us. And with our awareness of what's within us and what's around us, to accept that it is all the way that it is, acceptance. And say, ah, and relax the jaw, relax our shoulders, our chest, our belly, and connect to something that feels good, something that you love. I know that some of my friends here might have a cat nearby. There might be something in the room that you've made yourself or that a friend has made. And grounding, connecting, acceptance, allow us to be present. This is what brings us back into the present moment. And we can do this time after time during the day. Know that we can always come back to this place, always. So, now this slide here is about what Marshall describes in NVC as the jackal. And this is the part of ourselves that's trying to meet our needs for comfort and safety and protection, but doesn't yet know how to say it. So the jackal is the part of us that has lots of needs that are not met. The jackal does not know how to say them. And so this is what they do. Moralistic judgments, good and bad, right and wrong. Blame and finding fault, demanding, punishments and rewards, manipulation and labeling. These are tragic expressions of unmet needs. And we don't feel really good when we hear these things or when we say them. So if you wish to write in the chat, what's your favorite go-to jackal persona? What's the thing that you tend to do as a reaction whenever you hear these things from someone else? So please feel free to write something in the chat about that. I'm going to, I can't see the chat and the screen share at the same time. So in a minute, I'm just going to stop sharing the screen so that I can see what you've written. And then we can move on. So what I'll say about these things is what they bring up is distance. When these things happen, when we hear them, we can't bear to hear them. So we kind of move away from the person who's saying those things. And then we feel the pain of being distant from people that we want to connect with. As well as that, when we feel the pain, it feels wrong. It doesn't feel comfortable, and we try to drive it away. We try to get rid of it and push it aside. So my invitation always is to let those feelings be present, to find a way to say, yes, this is how I'm feeling. So pushing, being unloved, judging, shielding, ego, rejecting before being rejected. I'm stupid. What did I do? What have I done? And being fearful of a storm of emotion that feels really violent because of not knowing how to just talk about feelings in a way that's gentle. And to be honest, because these are all things we're afraid of, noticing, getting on my high horse, criticizing, labels, judgments, comparing myself with others, I'm not enough, guilt, criticism. And so let's simply be present with the fact that All of these things happen within us. We do them. And how could we do something different? So when we feel the discomfort, it's embodiment that is different. There's something different that we can do is to notice with awareness. How is my body responding to this? And we can begin to speak to these feelings. Instead of criticizing ourselves or arguing with the person, we could say, do you know what? In this moment, I'm feeling a real tension and discomfort. And I'm noticing that I might often criticize you or criticize myself. And I'm trying to learn to do something different here. So I just want to stay with that feeling. Is that okay? Can you be with me while I feel this? And while I sit with my feeling, I notice maybe I need some understanding. I need appreciation. Maybe I need support. And so this is a way of gradually bringing nonviolent language into the way we express ourselves. And it does take time and practice because we're really used to the habits and patterns that we have of the ways that we speak to ourselves and each other. And I'm so grateful for you offering these things here and letting them be present in the room with all of us. So this is a flow diagram, a little recap of where we've got to. We've recognized there are stimuli that we don't enjoy. We've recognized our body sensations. Can we accept all the emotions living within us in this moment? And they're not very nice. We don't like them. Can we now understand all those jackal reactions that come up as being more or less from the brain? This is the way we try to make sense of what's happening. And the brain reacts really quickly. So the next thing we can do is to pause and slow down. So one thing that we've spoken of is feeling grounded, being aware, compassionate presence, softening the heart. The last things on this slide are the main components of classical NVC. I'm not really going into that today. So let's be with how Marshall Rosenberg describes the compassionate part of ourselves as the giraffe. Now, so what I suggested was slowing down. And of course, we know how to do that. We can practice meditation, mindfulness, and focusing. So there are lots of ways we already know that we can practice the things that we need when we're in the heat of the moment. And even though it seems impossible right now, that with practice, we can begin to bring some of these things into the way we deal in the present with things that are really difficult. So imagine simply having more space to be with how we are, not to rush into an action, not to push the feelings down inside of ourselves, not to run away from them, but to have compassion. Now, how can we do that? So Karin van Manen did a beautiful talk yesterday on embodying compassion. So I'm simply going to invite you now to do compassion in your body in any way that feels alive for you, that lets you feel your aliveness, whatever is present. So one way is to imagine a shower, you know, the way that you shower kindness on other people. Let yourself receive that shower of kindness and compassion and let it soak into you. Maybe it is to move. Everything with me is about dance. So I imagine moving alongside, together, you know, in unity. That's often my visualization around togetherness. And also we can let one arm go underneath the other and bring the other arm over to the shoulder and practice a self-care pose. Oh, and give ourselves a pat. Oh, my love. There you are. And you have all these feelings inside you and it's really tough. And I love you. And it'll be okay because we're going to practice some new things. Oh, and I love that you've been able to speak about these things. Thank you. Can we do that for ourselves and move so that we can sense our needs? Are they to open? Maybe they're to curl up. Maybe they're to hide for a while and rest. Maybe they are to seek companionship. Maybe to say to someone, could you just sit with me? So here we are, and our reactions to the world and the things around us are in our bodies, and they can't be fixed because people don't know they're in there. They see our behavior, and you've described what those behaviors might be. But actually what they're not seeing is the hurt, the sadness, the fear, the disappointment, anxiety, the feelings. They can't see them. And so somehow we need to try and practice expressing them. And our brains can't fix them because our brains tend to go into judgment because that's what we've learned. So I'd like now to ask you a question about just jotting down for yourself in the chat or your own notebooks or whatever you need. How can you practice slowing down? How can you practice noticing your body's reactions and saying, oh, hello, it's you again, what's going on? And just love that part that does the judging and the shrinking and the tensing, because there isn't another way yet. How do you choose to do compassion in your body? Maybe you can try out a few things and see what really feels loving and gentle and empathic. And then if you do that, how does the compassion feel when it comes inside of you? And do you need more of this? And of course, what blocks your feeling of compassion? So if you'd like to write something about any of those things that touches you right now into the chat, I would really love that, because that helps me to feel connected with you, and that really matters to me. So, how you slow down, how you notice your body's reactions and love them, because your body loves speaking to you. And we've been pushing that beautiful body's reaction away for so long. And to meet ourselves with love, kindness, and generosity. And do compassion in our bodies. How is that? Paul Linden talks about a shining heart. That's a beautiful one. Can you glow, he says. So can we? How does compassion feel inside when we do it? How do we feel? Do we need this more? What can we practice to bring this more in? And what is it that blocks compassion? I'm going to stop the screen share now. Yeah. There are so many beautiful words that you're sending, and I absolutely love you for offering them. I love that, lying on the ground. Love that. Just feel the earth herself. Acceptance. Fear of slowing down and being seen as a failure by others, because the world says you've got to do everything faster. You've got to do more, be more productive. So how is it to remind ourselves that we need to do nothing more than connect to ourselves with love and gentleness? And find others that can support us with that. Yeah, a mini version of self-care that we can embody in the moment. Learned that self-compassion was a weakness. Oh, and to know that really self-compassion is the pillar on which we can build expression and understanding of others. We cannot have compassion for each other's stories if we can't feel it in ourselves. And when we know what it feels like, then we kind of know what it is we want to do around other people and their stories. And so often what happens is when we know about people's stories, we shrug it off and go, oh, not that again. Oh, you know, I'm done with that. Because we don't have the space for it. We simply haven't got the practice of growing compassion from the pain that we're feeling, from the discomfort, to invite acceptance that it is the way that it is, and let compassion come in. And so, yeah, we've learned that it's indulgent. Being connected with innocence, absolutely. And certainly my sense in my own story is that at last I feel like the 4-year-old I was meant to be. And I celebrate that. Oh, I love that feeling of having the water hug you. There are so many beautiful things here. And I'm really grateful for your companionship in this journey. I'd now like to talk a little bit about my feelings in response to my ancestors' trauma. And this huge feeling, wow, this feeling of how could you stop these people from living their lives with freedom? I feel a huge amount of passion around. They needed to live their lives their own way and to have choice, to have freedom. And I feel that about myself. So when I feel any echo of the suppression I felt as a girl, now with my embodied practices, my learning of nonviolence, I can stand up for my own needs. I feel a huge sense of no, I will not accept any suppression. I will not accept domination. I will stand up now for what I need. And so much of what I've felt in releasing myself from the suppression I've had for so many years has been anger. And feeling that anger, the heat of it in my belly, and letting it be there as it's mine. It's not about you. I do not want to lash it out at you. I am not blaming any of you. I want to feel this anger because I feel passionate that I can allow myself to feel it. And even deeper than that, when I think of my history and other people's history, the rage is even deeper. I feel it in my belly. I feel the tightening in my belly. I can even feel it in my bones, knowing it's in my DNA. That my ancestors and other people's ancestors also experienced receiving violence and pain, receiving separation and loss from their families. The pain of the grief that they could not process or be with or receive any of this compassion for. So when I imagine atrocities in the world, I actually cannot bear it because I feel it in my body. I feel the pain in myself and I feel it within my own belly and my own heart that are just tight as a response to things that go on in the world right now. And I feel it also in terms of forests, because I feel the love of the forests where my ancestors walked. I love them. I absolutely love them. And I know you do too. Oh. And so, of course, I need to ask you now, what stirs you to fierceness and anger? Where do you need to be fierce about what's needed? What sacred needs of yours are not met when you're heated and driven and motivated to act in some way? What motivates you to stand up and say no? And what do you want to say yes to? And so I invite you now to address any of those things that is alive for you in the chat. Absolutely. the way other people feel it's okay to shut my voice down. And I've been practicing. I practice it on my own. What do I want to say? What can I say when I hear this? Injustice, absolutely. That fires me up no end. Seeing children hurt. Keeping other people safe from what I experienced. Saying yes to gentleness and love. Can we do that? Can we do that day by day when we feel that inside of ourselves? When we're not heard, discrimination, silence when people are hurt. Inclusivity to queerness, absolutely so. All of us matter. Power over, because power over is brutality. Real power is in love. Neglect of mental well-being. Yeah, I understand. I also have been driven with conversations around politics. And that's really what's driven me here into this room right now, that I feel completely incompetent around politics and that there's nothing I can do. But this is something, this feels like something I can offer. This is a contribution I can make to growing, rippling love and compassion into all the places where there's the pain. Perceiving non-humanness. Indeed, people's humanity is denied. And many, many people of color find this. Hearing that people are victims of all types of injustice and hatred. And this question about the people who do this, the people who victimize others and treat them with hatred. What on earth is going on inside those people's hearts? Yeah. Thank you. And so what I want to speak to now is something about naming losses and grieving individually and collectively. Because some of our griefs, we cannot fix them, and some of them are too big to hold on our own, and we need each other. So we need something, spaces to mourn our ancestors' pain and our present pains, so that we can process with love all that our ancestors could not, and that we can be present today. And I hope that we've said something about the skills that we could use to do that today, to notice pain and to be with our feelings, to accept all the jackally things that go on within us and to bring compassion to them, connecting to the ground, to our hearts, and then reaching out to others. So letting our own hearts melt at other people's stories. My heart breaks over and over again when I hear all of the things that bring injustice to others, that allow some people to impose their hatred through violence towards other people. Okay, so what are we needing? We need belonging. Where there has been violation, we need some sort of way to heal. What does your body do when you hear another person's story? And some of you have been kind enough to speak to that. How can our heart receive grieving with others? So I'm thinking about, as my friend Susanna says here, to listen to each other and make the changes ourselves. This is what we can do. So this is my call to action, to create a space and time for grieving and hearing each other's stories, to speak to our ancestors' beautiful humanity, which we share, their hopes and dreams, their feelings and needs, let them be valued today. See each other's dignity and strength. I'm reading in the chat. Thank you, Emmanuel. the tragic losses and the healing that our ancestors would have wished for, we can do that now. To speak the needs of our ancestors that were met, their met needs of love and appreciation amongst each other, their shared preciousness and beauty and creativity and survival that brought us here. So, how can we embody our grief with compassion and softening and celebrate that we are here and that we can act together, that we can reach out to each other? Acceptance. And something I noticed very beautifully in conversation is that I now can welcome my own past, that it can sit with me right here, and I don't have to push it aside because it's a mess. I can let it be, and I am here because of it. To remember our common humanity, to celebrate new ways of being together. And by rejecting all the violence in the world that we do not enjoy, we can bring all of these things: compassion, love, celebration, appreciation of each other, so that we can find a way to share power without domination. Collectively, we can do this. We cannot do this on our own. And so I brought this to the conference as a way of a suggestion, as an invitation to be unified in all of these things. So from our pain and from our grief, from learning the skills within ourselves so that we can share them, so that we can do something different and we can spread love in the world. So I think it's a good time for me to stop talking now. And I am so deeply grateful for all that you've placed into the chat here. And so I really want to appreciate you all, because I've often felt this loneliness of fear, of injustice and pain and hatred. And I talked about it and I realized I could do something different. So here it is today. Thank you for sharing this with me, everyone, for coming here today. And yeah, and now I close and invite, of course, your questions. I long to be with you and to hear your questions in the last few minutes of this talk.
Ron, thank you so much. And that connection that you speak of, can you help us walk through that conversation with you? Something that someone has shared with you, something that's triggering, and how do you welcome and acknowledge that pain and foster connection in a conversation? Because I think that's what a lot of people are seeking here.
It's really hard. Thank you for that, Sam. And what I suggest is starting with something little, you know, starting it with when we break a plate in the kitchen or trip over something, to start with something small that we can manage. And then we can start to reach out together and tackle things that are bigger, because it really is too big. But together, we really can do a lot. We really can. And one of my embodied poses is inspiration, to let my arms go up and just allow myself to receive the sunlight, the air, the other's energy, and to welcome that into me. And so it's something that I practice every day. And so things that you will have met on the conference in other places, little practices, they are all going to help us to create the bigger picture together. And when we know we've got others with us, of course, leaning on a wall and knowing that at our backs we have others, we have our ancestors and we have each other, and lean into that and know that that will walk with us in forwards into whatever we need to do. Thank you.
It's so beautiful. Alana kind of continues that in asking, is this something we have to do individually, or how can individuals make that collective space specifically for mourning and healing in such a deep way?
That's something that I will be doing. So look out on the Embodiment Conference Facebook page and my own website, of course. I will be creating some spaces, maybe monthly, where we can simply do what we need. You know, everyone will arrive with choice. Maybe we'll talk about our ancestral stories. Maybe we'll talk about things in the present. I would like to make that available. So that's what I'll be doing. Thank you. Yeah. And so connect with me. My website will go up at the end of this. Please feel free to bring suggestions. And I will create some spaces myself.
And that's still, thank you for that offering, that action. That is also you. That is you being amazing. So on a really large scale, how do you think it looks for us to continue this work together in local communities globally in the biggest sense? What does that look like to you?
I think there's something really special in appreciating what we have. You know, as we learn to be with our pain and say, oh yes, there's some pain, to grow towards appreciating the qualities that were hidden. You know, this is something from me when I talked about my own story. This me that you see here, this me has always been here, but hidden. And so if we can find our own resources, when we connect to the ground and check out with our friends, some people do this on Facebook and say, what are the 3 great things you love about me? Or what qualities in me do you think are really special? And we can gradually begin to layer and grow things together. For me, nonviolent communication, I'm offering a free introduction on the 27th of October, leading to a full course. And that's a way of helping us with language. Because of course we automatically go into language of blame and judgment. It's what we learned. So it's about starting somewhere, wherever we can start, and growing slowly. And then it might begin to cascade. Does that help?
Everything you say helps. Wonderful. And have you satisfied that curiosity of anger, of really finding out what your ancestors did experience? Were you able to find that information?
Not well, in some ways. And I'm still working through it. That is my current work, amongst other things, to simply spend time with my ancestors, to be with them, to eat with them, to take them for a walk with me and know that they're already there, already in the air that I'm breathing, in the ground where I am, in the leaves that I touch. I know they're already there. And in you see where it's all, you know, we're all with each other. Other people are our ancestors. You know, they're here to say something, and just to let myself be open and say, okay, what's going on there? And what felt really sweet this morning was to just go outside and breathe the air by myself and feel that connection. And I love to be by the sea, because there's something about the enormity of the horizon that says you may be just little Ron right there, but actually you're connected to this massive, massive space. I find that really inspiring. So we all, I think, find our own ways. And it's beautiful to find the ones we have in common and really celebrate them. So yeah, celebrating all the little things that we win, to celebrate them and go, yay. The earth is the source. Yeah. Wow.
You're helping me glow. Thank you so much. And I'm inspired to explore that abyss of information that's lacking on one side, that is inconvenient to explore. I can look into it. So thank you so much, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
And as we all know, this conversation, this discussion does not stop. Ron has offered themselves as well, creating spaces. So if you want to connect with fellow participants, you can join Ron in the links we're putting in the chat, in our various Facebook groups, or with coffee break sessions through the portal. And truly, if you were touched as much as in this session, as much as I was, you can revisit it any time by buying the full library. There's Ron's amazing voice on audio and so much more. And obviously there's loads of shared information from over 1,000 speakers. You're going to miss something, and I'm bummed. I'm so glad I didn't miss this, but there is always something else to discover. So if you buy the whole library to digest in your own time during this conference, it is 50% off because we want you to have it. Your contribution helps make this conference freely available to all. Anyone can attend live, and that's huge. There's over 450,000 people doing that. It's the largest conference ever. So obviously it was a trial to put on. A veritable army is hosting. So please, it's a thank you to us as well. We greatly appreciate it. Once again, thank you for joining us today. And I hope your time with Ron was moving, because it moved me. You can learn more about their work and the spaces they're creating for you to share your morning in the chat. And lastly, to close, Ron, what is your top embodiment tip in one sentence or less?
Well, of course, breathe, slow down. This has all been said, you know, this is Thich Nhat Hanh. Notice yourself, notice the world, and celebrate every little thing you can do, every little step. Celebrate it. Just phone up a friend or go around to your neighbors and go, yay, I did this. That's what I'm going to do now, right? Thank you.
Because you did do it.
And so much gratitude to me for all of you making this conference work, you know, holding the tech spaces and introducing, welcoming us. I feel so honored and, you know, full of appreciation to be here today. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you. And thank you to Thea, our tech host as well, making this run smoothly.
Yeah.
Just like Ron said, thank you all for coming as well. For me, it's early morning. For you, maybe it was a lunch break. But know that there is always something else going on. And next on this channel, Trauma and Social Change, there's nothing to be afraid of, with Fred Donaldson. We hope to see you there. Take care, everyone.
Wow, thank you.
Beautiful work, Ron. Beautiful work.
Thank you so much. Right, I can now relax and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yes, it does help. I got mine was in the first few days, which was really
yes, it does make a difference, doesn't it? Oh, wow.
Okay. I'm going to close this down. It goes very suddenly, so thank you so much.
Bye, Ron. You were great. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Delia. Bye.